Hi, everybody. And this is Monday, uh, May 18th, 2020. And this is Read 180. I want you guys to know, because usually I have your assignments due by the following Monday at 9 a.m. But next Monday is actually Memorial Day, so that'll be a holiday. You still will have an assignment posted. You don't have to work on it Monday, of course. I'll probably wait and post it on Tuesday. But so actually, this lesson is due, and your 20 minutes of time on the app are due by Sunday, the 24th at 9 a.m. Okay. Don't stress if you decide to turn it in on Monday. That's fine too. I'm perfectly fine with that. Okay, so let's get started. Today we are going to do, it's a poem, and we're going to talk about figurative language. The poem is called A Place Without Shame, and it's by David Barraza. So we're going to do a couple reads of this. It's relatively short. We'll talk about some of the vocabulary that he uses in the poem, as well as some figurative language, and that will be it for today. All right, so let us start. Oops. Okay. Ugh, Lord. Okay, so our objectives for today are to determine the meaning of figurative words and phrases as they are used in a poem, and to restate ideas and express opinions based on knowledge gained from the discussion in the poem. Okay? You're due now. The word is identity. One aspect of a person's blank includes blank. Take a minute and go ahead and answer that or fill in the blanks to that sentence. All right, let's move on to our vocabulary. So our first word, as you see right here, is invisibility. Okay, invisibility is a noun, so it names an idea, right? You can't touch invisibility, or obviously you can't see invisibility, so it's naming an idea or a concept. It means the quality of not being able to be seen. All right, so go ahead and fill in the blank for that particular question. Okay, so here's my example. And the question, if you can see it right here, when is a time you might wish for invisibility? My example is, a time I might wish for invisibility is when I trip and fall in front of a crowd. Okay, so you take a moment, you complete that sentence answering the question, when is a time you might wish for invisibility? Okay. Next word is unintelligible. Let me move this up a little. All right. Unintelligible. It's an adjective, so it describes a noun, right? It describes a person, place, thing, or a concept or idea, okay? And it means impossible to understand. Impossible to understand. Take a moment, fill in the blank of the meaning. Okay, so here's my example. And you're going to be answering this question. Oops, where's it? Right there. When should people avoid being unintelligible? My example is, people should avoid being unintelligible if they need to answer a question in an interview. Okay, now you take a moment, complete the sentence, and answering the question, when should people avoid being unintelligible? All right, so poetry. We are reading a poem this week. We'll be discussing it more next week, but we won't be reading a new one. It'll be all based on this one. So pay close attention to today also. All right, so poetry, it's a type of literature, right? It focuses on the expression of feelings and ideas through word choice, sound, and rhythm. Okay, so it's a different type of literature. It's not it's, it's not like the novels you read, for example, or an article that you might read. Okay, and poets, they choose and they words use their words very carefully because they want to convey really strong emotions and create images in the reader's mind, right? So they want us to see what they're trying to say. And then when you do read a poem, you might notice it might not always follow the regular rules of punctuation or capitalization, and you'll kind of see that in the poems we read today. In fact, if you look right here, over at the beginning part of the poem, you'll see that many, not all, but many of the first letters of each line are capitalized, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's at the beginning of a sentence. If we take right here, this the first couple lines is one sentence. So we come unnoticed from the barrios in the suburbs of California. That's one sentence. You wouldn't normally capitalize the word "and" here, but the style that the poet is using to write this, he does capitalize at the beginning of most or many of the beginning of a line. All right, and then punctuation, it might not follow punctuation rules. Okay, all right, so we're reading, the poem we're reading today is called A Place Without Shame. It's by David Barraza, and it's the type of poetry is free verse. Okay, there are many types of poetry. This one is free verse. And what that means is the lines don't rhyme in free verse. So it might just seem at times like you're reading from a novel or a story, but you're not. It's a poem. And there might be a pattern to it, there might not be a pattern to it. Kind of like when you've read Shakespeare in English classes, and you talk about sonnets and different type of patterns in Shakespeare and really just in poetry in general. So free verse, there might not be a pattern, and that's okay. Oops. This is crazy. Okay, so we're going to read it first time. I'm going to read aloud. I want you to follow along. You can read aloud on your own with me if you like. All right. As I read through the first time, I want you to think about, and this is going to be answering our key idea question, I want you to think about where and when the poet is expressing a sense of being without shame. Okay? All right, let me move this over here so you can kind of see some of the pictures too. You can also open up, I attached, a copy of this, the 2 pages, so you can open up your own copy if you prefer to, or print your own copy if you prefer to have it all in front of you at the same time. All right. A Place Without Shame by David Barraza. We come unnoticed from the barrios and the suburbs of California. Some cruise in lowriders or migrate in pickup trucks, even caravan and minivans through Spanish-named cities that mean nothing. On arrival, We leave our invisibility in the car and lock the door. As we enter the house, we wipe insecurity off our shoes and hang our marginality on the rack. We bear hug one another and kiss the closest cheek. From our pockets, we remove our tongues and let them la la la. Our tightness is shaken off gradually to the songs of Vicente. Ay, ay, explodes from every mouth. The mariachi music and spicy salsa warms our heart. Ay, ay, ay. The voiceless are heard. The invisible take form. Hips spin and sway, keeping up with the rhythmic boots encouraged by barking hands. Ay, ay, ay. The unintelligible sounds of life roll within the house. Against the walls lie the unlocked shackles. Tonight the keys were found. Fear runs screaming out of the house. Self-doubt crawls out the window. Confidence dances with all who will have her. She encourages all to enjoy her, and the music makes everything better. All right. So let's scroll here. Okay, so our key idea. So normally that's our first question in our real book when we have our real books in front of us. And the question is, why does the poet call this poem a place without shame? Okay, so let's take a look at a couple things first. I'm just going to scroll back here for a second. Okay. I want to go over a couple things with you. Okay. So first, this word here, barrios. Okay. I'm going to see if I can make this work right. We shall see. Barrios. Nope, it is not working for me. No, okay, well, that's all right. Oops, wrong tool, that's why. Okay, anyways, that's no biggie. All right, so we come unnoticed from barrios. And a barrio, and if you see down below here, or if you have yours printed out in front of you, they're neighborhoods where many Spanish-speaking people live, okay? You may have heard that term also, barrios. If you've read, for example, in 10th grade English, you read some texts that deal with, well, memoirs actually, that deal with Japanese internment here in the United States, and talk about barrios where the Jewish people lived. So a barrio in this case, though, is where many Spanish-speaking people live. Okay, and the other word, or a couple others here. Okay, it says our tightness is shaken off gradually to the songs of Vicente. Vicente is a Mexican singer. Okay. Excuse me. And one last word here, shackles. So in line 29, it says, against the walls lie the unlocked shackles. And you may have heard this word before, maybe in a movie or TV show or something you've read, especially in terms of when you're talking about a prisoner, you know, they're walking, they're on death row, or they're being taken to the courtroom, they're in shackles. And that is what he's referring to in some sense. So shackles, pairs of metal rings joined by chains that fasten together hands or feet, or both. Okay. Okay. Let's see. And the other thing about shackles, where are we? Okay. So in this poem, David Barraza, the author, or the poet, we should say, what he's referring to as shackles is the prejudice or the restrictions that Hispanic or and other minorities sometimes encounter in the outside world. Okay. But in this case, when they're celebrating with their own culture, right? They come home, they're singing, they're dancing, they're talking, they're having a good time, a positive time. So when they're celebrating with their own culture, it lets them remove or drop those shackles. Okay, hence he says, against the walls lie the unlocked shackles, right? So they entered the doors and those shackles were gone. Okay, you'll have to talk a little bit more about that in one of your other responses. Okay, so back to key idea. And why is it not moving? Oh, that's why. Okay. Oh, no. Shoot. Lord. Oh, no, it keeps. Okay. I don't know how to get rid of this. There we go. Okay. Okay. So, our first read, why does the poet call up this poem a place without shame? Okay. And you're going to take a moment and fill in the blank to finish this sentence starter. He calls it a place without shame because blank. All right. So let's read this a second time. Well, first, before we read it, let me say this. Okay. So the second read, we're going to analyze figurative language. Okay. Remember, figurative language is it includes all sorts of uh, tools, if you will, that a writer may use. In this case, we're going to talk about personification, and that's a way of using language. It gives human-like characteristics to objects, concepts, or ideas. And a poet or any author uses it to create images or pictures in the reader's mind. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so let's look at this example. So before I read it. All right. So in one of the lines, the poet says that fear runs screaming out the door. Okay, let's talk about that for 1 second here. Okay. Says that fear runs screaming out of the house. I'm sorry, not out the door, out of the house. Now, I know, right, and you know that fear can't actually run or scream, right? It's not a human being. It's a feeling. It's an emotion. However, when I imagine a person who runs screaming, I picture someone who wants to get away as quickly as possible, right? So the personification helps the poet convey that fears are eased, or they kind of are going away when people enter this place without shame, right? Because the fear just goes running away out of the house. Okay, so let's read this one more time here. Okay. And again, a place without shame. We come unnoticed from the barrios and the suburbs of California. Some cruise in lowriders or migrate in pickup trucks, even caravan and minivans through Spanish-named cities that mean nothing. On arrival, we leave our invisibility in the car and lock the door. As we enter the house, we wipe insecurity off our shoes and hang our marginality on the rack. We bear hug one another and kiss the closest cheek. From our pockets, we remove our tongues and let them la la la. Our tightness is shaken off gradually to the songs of Vicente. Ay ay explodes from every mouth. The mariachi music and spicy salsa warms our hearts. Ay ay ay. The voiceless are heard. The invisible take form. Hips spin and sway, keeping up with rhythmic boots encouraged by barking hands. Ay, 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 the unintelligible sounds of life roll within the house. Against the walls lie the unlocked shackles. Tonight the keys were found. Fear runs screaming out of the house. Self-doubt crawls out the window. Confidence dances with all who will have her. She encourages all to enjoy her, and the music makes everything better. All right, so we go over here. Analyze figurative language. What does the poet personify in lines 31 and 32? Oops, okay. Explain what the personification means. Okay, so, oops. Ugh, why do I keep doing this? Sorry, guys. Just moves too quickly. Okay, so lines 31 and 32. So we have fear runs screaming out of the house, which we talked about that one, right? Self-doubt crawls out the window. Okay, so the poet personifies blank. It means that blank. Okay, so what I want you to look at is line 32. Okay, so we're going to stray a little bit from this. And you'll see when the questions pop up. So analyze the line, self-doubt crawls out the window on line 32. Okay, and these are the questions you're going to answer pertaining to that. What concept or object is personified? Right, so what is the what is the concept that is given human characteristics? What is that human characteristic or action that's being shown, right? And what does that action normally signify or mean, right? And why is it being performed in this poem? Why did the poet include this? What did he want us to see in our mind? Okay, so take a few moments and these questions will come up. All right. And our stretch question. Yay! Almost at the end for today. Okay. Which example of figurative language do you find the most descriptive in the poem and why? All right. So I want you to look back, and you can't use either of the two that we used. So you cannot use fear runs screaming out of the house or self-doubt crawls out the window, but there are a few more in there, at least a few more. Okay. So you're answering, well, kind of three questions, because I want you to include the line or lines that you're pulling your example from. So you're going to complete this sentence starter. The figurative language I find most descriptive is blank. So in this case, you're going to have a quote. So remember your quotation marks. So your quotation from the poem in lines, or line. So you're going to include here what line or lines your quote is from, because blank. And you're going to explain why. Why is that example, why do you find it the most descriptive or very descriptive in the poem? Okay, so this is your opinion. So there's not exactly any right or wrong answer, unless you don't choose a line from the poem and choose it from, I don't know, the Three Little Pigs or something. So I want you to take a few moments, finish that sentence, telling me what line you found most descriptive. Okay, so the takeaway. So in his poem, remember the poet is David Barraza, he expresses two things: how identifying with a cultural group can provide a place of comfort and security, because people can share food, dancing, experiences, music, language, so they feel safe, secure, comfortable. Okay, and we kind of saw that in the poem when, you know, at the beginning he talked about how, um, they're coming in from wherever, from the barrios, the suburbs of California. They're coming in all sorts of um, vehicles, through Spanish named cities. Okay. And then they arrive wherever they are. We're not sure exactly where they are, but we do know that they leave their invisibility. They don't feel invisible anymore. They lock that in the car. They enter this house. Okay. So it seems like it's some sort of party, right? Um, keep going here. Um, From our pockets, we remove our tongues to let them la la la. Okay, he's our tightness is shaken off gradually to the songs of Vicente. They're listening to the music that they know, the mariachi music, salsa, spicy salsa, the food of their culture. Um, Hips spin and sway. They're dancing, right? Keeping up with rhythmic boots. So, boots that are either stomping or tapping to the music, barking hands, right? So all sorts of things. All right. So after you're finished with this, I need you to do 20 minutes on the student app, and that will be it for this week. I will let you know that at some point, later this week or next week, um, the county does want us to have you guys take the reading inventory and our phonics inventory, like we normally would if we were in school. So I'm going to figure out, we do need to do that. I believe by the end of next week it'll be. So we'll just be looking out for that. I will probably try to contact you or your parent to assure that you can be provided with a space that you'll be able to focus, will be quiet, because I know some of you may have, brothers, sisters, whatever else going on. So it's a little bit different situation. But we'll see what I can come up with to hopefully persuade you to do the best job you can under the circumstances. I know usually I've offered some extra credit points or something like that if you've increased from the last time. So maybe we'll try something like that. So, all right. So that is it. And I will see you next time. Bye.